The dojo was quiet, almost reverent. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows over the polished wooden floor. Students were lined up neatly on the mats, their uniforms crisp, belts tied perfectly. There was a soft hum of anticipation in the air, like the room itself knew something extraordinary was about to happen. Steven Seagal entered. Just his presence changed everything. The room seemed to shrink. Even the seasoned instructors straightened instinctively. His steps were deliberate, calm, and measured, yet there was a weight in his stance that spoke of decades of mastery. No one spoke. No one dared move too quickly. This was not a man who needed to raise his voice to command respect. His very being did that. Among the students stood Kenji, a young black belt with a sharp gaze and a cocky smirk. He had trained hard, but he had never faced anyone like Seagal before. Movies, social media, legends, Kenji thought he knew. But he wanted to test himself, to prove that skill and aggression could outweigh calm experience. "Let's have some fun," Kenji called, stepping forward. His tone was challenging, almost mocking. "Don't hold back. Show me what you've got." Seagal's eyes didn't widen, didn't flicker with anger or amusement. He simply looked at Kenji, his expression unreadable, and said softly, almost conversationally, "I am here to teach, not to fight." Kenji laughed, more out of disbelief than humor. "Teach? That's fine. Let's make it interesting anyway. Just one round. Let's see who really knows martial arts." The students exchanged uneasy glances. Phones were subtly raised, cameras ready. Something about Kenji's challenge felt reckless, and something about Seagal's calm felt dangerous. Seagal moved closer, his hands relaxed, posture effortless. Kenji bounced lightly on his heels, adrenaline pumping, ready to strike at the first opening. The tension between them was electric. Every eye in the room followed, every breath held. It was the perfect moment of anticipation. The calm before the storm. And little did Kenji know, the next few seconds would teach him a lesson in mastery, humility, and control, one that would leave the entire dojo silent and awestruck. Kenji took a deep breath and stepped closer. The adrenaline in his veins burned hot. He could feel every eye in the dojo on him, every whisper of anticipation, every quiet click of a phone camera. He had trained for years, faced dozens of opponents, and dominated every local tournament. But today felt different. Today he was challenging a legend, Steven Seagal, and the air itself seemed charged with electricity. Seagal stood perfectly still, hands relaxed by his sides. There was no nervous twitch, no pretense, no intimidation, only calm, unshakable confidence. It was as if he were moving in a world Kenji could not even perceive, where every attack could be anticipated, every motion read before it began. Kenji smirked and launched his first jab. Fast, precise, aimed at Seagal's midsection. Seagal didn't move aggressively. Instead, with the slightest shift of his weight, the jab sailed past him, missing cleanly by inches. The room gasped. Some students instinctively leaned back, some froze mid-breath. Kenji's confidence wavered slightly. "Not bad," Seagal said softly, almost conversationally, "but timing is everything." Kenji gritted his teeth. "Timing? I have speed, power, and skill. You'll see." He stepped forward again, launching a rapid combination, a high kick, followed by a punch, then a spinning back strike. Each move precise and aggressive, meant to overwhelm. Seagal, however, responded only with subtle movements, slight pivots, minimal shifts of his stance. He let the attacks slide past him as if they were nothing more than air. Phones clicked furiously. Students whispered to one another. "How is he not even touching him?" one muttered. "It's like Seagal is untouchable." Kenji's frustration grew. His strikes became faster, more forceful. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his breaths came quicker, but nothing seemed to land. Every attempt to dominate only made Seagal's calm more pronounced. Then Seagal stepped lightly to the side, barely noticeable, letting Kenji's momentum carry him forward. Kenji stumbled slightly, barely regaining balance. His eyes widened. This was no ordinary opponent. "Are you even trying?" Kenji spat, voice rising with irritation. "You're just standing there." Seagal's gaze met his. Calm. Unshakable. "I am not standing. I am controlling." Kenji's arms flailed, launching another flurry of strikes, wild and desperate. Each punch, each kick, missed its mark. The dojo was silent except for the sound of Kenji's heavy breathing and the soft thuds of his feet on the mat. Students' jaws dropped. Even the senior instructors exchanged worried glances. The tension in the room grew. Every student felt it in their bones. This was a clash of ego versus experience, aggression versus discipline. Kenji's frustration boiled over. He was no longer confident, only desperate. He lunged again, fists and feet moving faster than before. Seagal shifted slightly, letting Kenji's energy carry him forward, redirecting the force with minimal effort. Each move Seagal made was precise, controlled, and deadly in its subtlety. Kenji's attacks began to look clumsy in contrast. If you were in the dojo right now, would you stay calm like Seagal or intervene to stop Kenji's reckless attack? Comment below, calm or step in. Kenji paused for a moment, chest heaving, sweat dripping. He realized that for the first time in his life, his strength and speed weren't enough. The room's energy shifted. Students and instructors alike could feel it. Seagal wasn't just defending, he was teaching without words. Every failed strike was a lesson in patience, control, and awareness. Kenji's eyes darted around. Phones recorded every second, capturing what would soon become a legendary dojo moment. Some students whispered encouragement. Some held their breath. The dojo had become more than a training hall. It was a stage for a lesson in true mastery. Kenji launched one final desperate kick, a high, spinning technique meant to impress and overwhelm. Seagal moved, almost imperceptibly, letting the momentum carry Kenji past him. Kenji stumbled, caught himself barely, his face red with exertion and humiliation. The dojo was silent, except for the soft intake of breath from the students. Kenji's heart pounded, and he realized, finally, that the fight wasn't about winning. It was about understanding that skill, experience, and calm mastery could neutralize even the most aggressive attack. Seagal stood still, hands relaxed, watching Kenji regain balance. His calm dominance was absolute. The room was tense, every student frozen, knowing that the lesson had already begun. In mere seconds, the energy in the dojo had shifted, and the students had witnessed the first undeniable proof of Seagal's mastery. Kenji's breathing was heavy, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His pride, bruised by the subtle but undeniable superiority of Seagal, fueled him to push harder. Every fiber in his body screamed to attack faster, strike stronger, and finally prove that experience alone could not dominate youthful energy and raw aggression. But he was slowly learning what the students in the dojo had long suspected. Seagal was unlike anyone he had faced. Seagal's calm, unassuming demeanor only made Kenji more reckless. He bounced lightly on his heels, fists raised, and lunged forward with a combination of high kicks and spinning strikes that would have felled most opponents. Yet each strike either missed or was subtly redirected with minimal effort from Seagal, whose movements were almost imperceptible but devastatingly effective. The dojo had become a stage. Phones were recording every moment. Students whispered to each other, voices barely audible over Kenji's rapid breathing and the thuds of his strikes hitting nothing but air. Some were in awe, unable to comprehend how Seagal moved with such control and precision. Others were tense, waiting for a moment that might break the unspoken rules of discipline in the dojo. Seagal moved lightly to the side, letting Kenji's momentum carry him past, then shifted just enough to redirect an incoming kick. Kenji stumbled slightly, catching himself at the last moment. His frustration was visible, his ego bruised. Yet he didn't stop. He threw another flurry of punches, faster, more chaotic, as if sheer speed could overwhelm calm mastery. The students exchanged wide-eyed glances. It was like watching a storm collide with a mountain, aggression against unyielding stillness. And the storm was clearly losing. Kenji's pride reached its peak. "Come on!" he shouted, voice tinged with anger. "Show me what you've got. Don't just stand there." Seagal didn't flinch. His eyes held Kenji's gaze, calm and unwavering, and in that look was a lesson more powerful than any strike. Control. Patience. Discipline. Mastery. Kenji's attacks became wilder, more desperate. High kicks, spinning back fists, and lunges were executed with full force, but Seagal's minimal movements rendered them useless. Each miss was like a crack forming in Kenji's confidence. The room, now utterly silent, absorbed the tension. The students could feel the lesson unfolding before their eyes, a lesson about ego, skill, and respect. Who do you think will win this round, the overconfident black belt or Steven Seagal? Comment below with your pick. Kenji, out of options, decided on a bold final attempt. He launched a spinning jump kick aimed at Seagal's head. The move required perfect timing and skill. It was dangerous if executed incorrectly. Students instinctively leaned back, phones raised to capture what they all sensed would be the climax. Seagal, calm as ever, merely shifted his weight slightly. With perfect timing, he stepped aside, letting Kenji's momentum carry him past. Kenji stumbled forward, barely catching himself. His face was red with exertion and frustration. The realization hit him in that split second. His strength and speed, his years of training, could not overpower skill and experience. The dojo was utterly silent. The air felt thick, almost vibrating with tension. Every student's eyes were wide. Every camera focused. Even the senior instructors, who had seen countless matches and challenges, were frozen in awe. They could feel, with absolute clarity, the mastery emanating from Seagal. Kenji straightened, chest heaving, and looked at Seagal, not with anger this time, but with a dawning respect. He was learning, slowly, that control and mastery could defeat raw aggression without ever needing to strike with full force. Seagal took a small step forward, hands relaxed, observing Kenji as he regained balance. The subtle dominance, the calm authority, was undeniable. The dojo had witnessed something extraordinary. Skill tempered with patience, ego humbled without humiliation, and the silent, unshakable presence of a true master. Kenji's chest heaved with exertion, beads of sweat trickling down his forehead. His eyes darted around, searching for any hint of weakness in Seagal, but there was none. Every subtle movement of Seagal's body radiated absolute control, an almost unnatural mastery that made even the most confident students in the dojo hold their breath. A whisper spread among the students. That's Steven Seagal." The name rippled through the room like electricity. Phones, already recording, captured the reactions of wide-eyed students. Whispers escalated. "The legendary master. He's here in person." Kenji froze mid-motion, his confidence faltering. He had assumed this was a challenge he could handle, a spectacle he could dominate for bragging rights. But now, the weight of history, reputation, and skill pressed down on him. He realized that he was not just facing another black belt. He was confronting a man whose mastery had been honed over decades, a man whose movements were studied, deliberate, and unbreakable. Seagal remained calm, almost casual, yet there was an undeniable presence about him that commanded attention. His eyes scanned Kenji's form, reading not just the strikes but the intentions behind them. With minimal effort, he subtly shifted, redirecting Kenji's last attempted kick harmlessly to the side. The dojo went silent. Not a whisper, not a cough, just pure, awed attention. Even Kenji felt the weight of that silence, the invisible acknowledgement of Seagal's authority. It was the kind of quiet that demanded reflection, respect, and humility. Kenji's ego battled with reality. He wanted to lash out, to prove himself, but every instinct told him that this was not the moment for arrogance. Every failed attack, every subtle counter from Seagal, was a lesson in control, timing, and mental clarity. Seagal's movements were subtle, precise, and unassuming. One could hardly call them strikes or counters. They were corrections, almost like guiding a student back onto the right path. And in each movement, the student saw the truth. Mastery is not in brute force or speed, but in understanding one's opponent, controlling the space, and remaining unshaken under pressure. Kenji hesitated mid-step, glancing around at the students. Their faces reflected a mixture of shock and admiration. Some whispered in hushed tones, "I've never seen anyone like this." Others shook their heads, mouths slightly open, as if struggling to process the demonstration unfolding before them. The senior instructors exchanged glances, subtle nods of approval passing between them. They had trained many students over the years, but few had ever witnessed such a live lesson in humility and skill. It was rare to see a master teach without words, to let a student realize their limits through experience rather than criticism. Seagal finally spoke, his voice calm but authoritative. "Every action has a purpose. Every attack, a lesson. Control your mind before your body will follow." The students leaned in, hanging on every word. Kenji's fists unclenched slightly. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that the fight was never about proving dominance. It was about learning, observing, and respecting the balance between skill and patience. A subtle shift occurred in the room. Phones continued recording, but no one spoke. The anticipation of a climactic blow, of a final confrontation, had been replaced by a profound silence. The dojo was holding its collective breath, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Kenji straightened his stance, not with arrogance, but with newfound understanding. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that acknowledged Seagal's superiority without humiliation. The tension had reached its peak. The lesson was clear. Mastery and humility always outweigh ego and aggression. And in that moment, the dojo wasn't just a training hall. It had become a living classroom, teaching every student, instructor, and observer a truth that words alone could never convey. The room remained silent, the energy thick with awe and realization. Every eye was on Seagal, every heart absorbing the weight of the moment. In mere minutes, the young black belt's challenge had transformed into a demonstration of absolute control, subtle dominance, and the kind of respect that can only be earned, never demanded. Kenji's heart raced. His muscles burned with exertion, sweat trickled down his face, and every instinct screamed that he had to strike harder, faster, to regain even a shred of control. Yet, no matter how aggressive his attacks became, Seagal's calm, measured presence never faltered. It was as if time itself slowed down around the master. The young black belt launched a furious combination, rapid jabs, spinning kicks, and high strikes aimed to overwhelm Seagal. The speed and aggression were impressive, but Seagal's subtle movements made them futile. One by one, the attacks missed, either redirected or absorbed by Seagal's minimal adjustments. Each failed strike widened the gap between raw energy and true mastery, and every student in the dojo could feel it. Seagal finally responded, not with a violent counter, but with a precise, fluid movement that showcased control rather than aggression. With a single step and slight shift of his hips, he intercepted Kenji's spinning back kick, redirecting its momentum harmlessly past him. The students gasped. The sound of impact was almost negligible, yet the power of the technique resonated throughout the room. Kenji staggered, trying to regain balance. His confidence wavered for the first time. He could feel the shift in energy, the invisible tide turning against him. The dojo, now completely silent, held its collective breath. Every student, every instructor, every observer sensed that they were witnessing a pivotal moment, a lesson in humility, mastery, and restraint. Seagal's eyes met Kenji's. Calm. Unyielding. Dominant without arrogance. In that gaze, Kenji felt a weight he had never encountered before. It wasn't fear, it was understanding. A recognition that skill tempered with patience could outmatch raw power every time. The students leaned forward on the mats, phones recording every subtle movement. Whispers floated through the room like electricity. "Did you see that?" He didn't even strike fully, yet Kenji's attack failed. That's real mastery. Kenji, though frustrated, began to feel the lesson seep in. His attacks grew wilder, more desperate, fueled by ego and pride. Seagal, however, continued to move with effortless precision, each step, each shift, each subtle deflection teaching Kenji the importance of control. Then came the defining moment. Kenji attempted a bold, high-risk spinning jump kick, the kind that could end a fight decisively if executed perfectly. The dojo held its breath. Students instinctively leaned back, cameras trained on the unfolding drama. Seagal, as always calm, met the attack not with force but with subtlety. A slight pivot, a gentle step aside, and Kenji's momentum carried him harmlessly forward. The kick landed on nothing. Kenji stumbled, chest heaving, red-faced and utterly humbled. For the first time, he realized that power without control was meaningless. The students were speechless. The dojo had transformed from a simple training hall into a stage for a live lesson in mastery, humility, and discipline. Every eye reflected awe. Every breath was held in respect. And Kenji, once so confident, bowed slightly, acknowledging his lesson without resentment. Seagal didn't raise his voice. He didn't gloat. He merely spoke, calm and deliberate. Mastery is not about striking harder. It is about knowing when to move, when to act, and when to observe. Ego blinds. Control enlightens. The dojo absorbed every word. Phones captured them. Students whispered among themselves, awestruck, "He's teaching without striking. Incredible. I've never seen such calm and authority in action." Kenji's pride had been humbled, but his respect had grown. He straightened slowly, his stance no longer aggressive but reflective. He realized that true martial arts was about understanding, patience, and respect, not ego or dominance. The room remained silent, but the energy had shifted. The tension was replaced by reverence. The lesson was clear. Skill, patience, and calm mastery always triumph over aggression and arrogance. And in that silent dojo, every student, every observer, every phone recording knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Kenji's chest heaved, his pride battered, his body trembling with exertion. He had thrown everything he had at Seagal: speed, strength, technique, but each attempt was met with subtle, effortless mastery. Every strike he launched, every kick he attempted, was either redirected or absorbed without harm. It was a lesson he could not ignore. Raw aggression was no match for calm experience and precise skill. The dojo was utterly silent. Students and instructors alike held their breath, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. Phones hovered mid-air, recording the unfolding moment, knowing they were witnessing something extraordinary. There were no whispers, no nervous coughs, just a tense stillness, thick with anticipation and awe. The silence itself seemed to amplify Seagal's presence, making every subtle movement of his body feel monumental. Seagal's eyes met Kenji's, calm yet penetrating, reading not just the attacks but the intention behind them. Kenji could feel the weight of those eyes pressing down on him, not with malice, but with undeniable authority. He understood, deep down, that he was being taught a lesson far greater than any he had learned from speed, power, or competition. Kenji launched one last desperate attack, a spinning jump kick aimed with full force at Seagal's head. Every student froze. Phones clicked furiously, capturing what could be the climax of this legendary moment. Kenji's body surged forward with momentum and intent, but Seagal, as always, moved with effortless precision. A slight pivot of his hips, a subtle step aside, and the kick missed entirely. The impact of the miss was more than physical. It reverberated through the dojo. Kenji stumbled slightly, barely regaining balance, his expression a mix of shock, frustration, and dawning respect. In that instant, every student, every instructor, every observer realized the truth. Mastery did not require shouting, force, or ego. It required patience, control, and unwavering focus. Have you ever witnessed skill so superior that it silenced everyone around you? Comment below with awesome if you have. The dojo's energy shifted. What had begun as a confrontation had transformed into a lesson. Seagal moved forward slowly, deliberately, his posture relaxed, yet commanding. He did not gloat, did not mock. He simply guided Kenji into a stance, correcting posture and alignment with the slightest touch. The act was gentle, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly powerful. Kenji's fists unclenched. He bowed slightly, an acknowledgement of Seagal's skill and the lesson he had imparted. His ego, once inflated and overconfident, had been humbled, but his respect had grown exponentially. The students felt it too, a shared understanding that this moment was about more than winning or losing. It was about discipline, mastery, and the subtle art of control. The senior instructors nodded quietly to each other, impressed by the demonstration of skill, composure, and teaching. This was not a fight. It was a live lesson in martial arts philosophy. The dojo had become a classroom of silent understanding, where every subtle movement and every quiet action spoke volumes. Seagal spoke at last, his voice calm and deliberate. Strength alone is fleeting. Control, patience, and respect endure. Humility is the path to true mastery. The students absorbed every word, hearts pounding, minds racing. The silence in the dojo was no longer tense, it was reverent. Every eye followed Seagal, every thought aligned with the lesson unfolding before them. Kenji, humbled but enlightened, now understood that ego could never overcome experience, that force without control was meaningless. For several moments, the dojo remained motionless. Not because anyone was afraid to move, but because everyone recognized the magnitude of the lesson they had just witnessed. Phones recorded history. Students whispered in awe. And Kenji, the one who had dared challenge a legend, now bowed in full understanding of what true skill and humility meant. The silence was absolute. The dojo had fallen quiet, not out of fear, but out of respect. The message was clear: mastery is silent, controlled, and profound, and it always leaves an impression far deeper than aggression ever could. The dojo remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Kenji, humbled and still catching his breath, slowly straightened and bowed deeply to Seagal. The other students mirrored the gesture, some standing in awe, others kneeling slightly in reverence. Every eye was on the legendary master, and every heart absorbed the unspoken lesson. Skill, patience, and humility always triumph over arrogance and brute force. Seagal did not raise his voice. He did not celebrate. His calm demeanor spoke louder than any shout could. The students' phones recorded every moment, each video destined to circulate far beyond the walls of this quiet dojo. Already, whispers of the legendary demonstration were spreading among martial arts communities online. Clips would soon go viral, capturing the perfect embodiment of mastery in action. Kenji finally lifted his head, his pride humbled, yet his respect immeasurable. He realized that the fight had never been about proving himself superior. It had been about understanding his limits, learning from experience, and recognizing the power of controlled skill. The young black belt, who had entered the dojo full of ego, now left with a lesson he would carry for life. The senior instructors nodded approvingly. "This is why we study martial arts," one whispered to another. "Not to win fights, but to learn discipline, patience, and respect." The lesson had been delivered without humiliation, without aggression, purely through demonstration and calm authority. Seagal finally addressed the entire dojo, his voice calm, deliberate, and imbued with weight. "Strength is temporary. Control is lasting. Ego blinds the mind, but humility sharpens it. Mastery is not proven by defeating others, it is shown by elevating them. The students absorbed every word, understanding that this moment would define their martial arts journey forever. Kenji stepped forward once more, this time not with defiance, but with gratitude. He bowed, acknowledging both Seagal's skill and the silent lesson imparted. Phones were now buzzing with notifications. Students began sharing clips on social media. Comments poured in from martial artists and enthusiasts around the world. Awe, admiration, and respect for Seagal's unparalleled mastery and calm authority. The dojo's silent moment had become a viral lesson in humility, control, and true martial arts discipline. The young black belt, now transformed by experience, approached Seagal once more. "Thank you," he said, voice steady but filled with newfound respect. "I understand now. It's not about ego, speed, or power, it's about control, patience, and respect." Seagal's faint smile was the only acknowledgement needed. No gloating, no boasting, just the quiet satisfaction of having shared his mastery in the most profound way possible. As the students filed out of the dojo that day, each carried with them more than just memories of an incredible demonstration. They carried the essence of a true martial arts lesson. Ego could be loud, aggressive, and flashy, but true mastery was silent, controlled, and commanding. That silent authority left an impression far deeper than any shout, punch, or kick ever could. By evening, clips of the event were circulating online, going viral across martial arts communities, YouTube channels, and social media platforms. Comments reflected the awe and inspiration of millions. "Unbelievable! The calmness and control are unreal. This is why Seagal is a legend. True skill doesn't need to shout." Respect. The dojo had become more than a training hall, it had become a symbol of discipline, patience, and respect. And in every corner of the world where the clips were watched, viewers felt the same silent power that had captivated every student inside those walls. The final takeaway was simple, but powerful. True mastery is measured not by brute force, but by the ability to remain calm, humble, and controlled under any challenge. And in that lesson, the black belt, the students, and the millions watching online all learned the same truth. The dojo may have gone silent, but the lesson would resonate forever.